Please take your seats. The meeting is about to begin. Remember to speak into the microphone, as this meeting is being recorded for public record. Please stand by. We are going on air in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Commissioner Laura Dominguez, and I'm the chair of the Public Safety and Neighborhood Quality of Life Committee. My members are Commissioner Magazine and Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez. And thank you, Commissioner Alex Hernandez, for being here as well. Absent is the vice chair, Commissioner Suarez, and Commissioner Tanya Bott will be joining us by Zoom later to present her items. And also with us on the dais is the fabulous Stephanie Ray Brooks, Assistant City Manager Mark Taxes, and Deputy City Attorney Rob Rosenwald. So I think we could take it away with any announcements.
Hi, so we have one time certain item, which would be item number 9, discuss possible installations of Blue Star and Gold Star memorial makers at Canopy Park. And we have one item that will be deferred, which is item number 17, discussion regarding beach concessions regulations and layouts to ensure that sufficient areas remain available at all times for public enjoyment of the beaches. So with that, we could start our meeting. The first item will be item number 9, discuss possible installations of Blue Star and Gold Star memorial markers at Canopy Park.
Commissioner Fernandez, this is your item.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and it's such a pleasure to be at your committee this morning. Thank you for always leading this committee with such great respect to our community.
Thank you, Commissioner Fernandez. This is the last one with this particular group, but starting next month, you'll be my vice chair, and looking forward to it. And Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez, you'll be the third member of the group, and we'll be the power team.
There you go. Well, it is a privilege.
Commissioner Magazine, you'll be the alternate.
I don't even think that's the case.
Yeah.
It's certainly a privilege to be at this committee this morning. Last month, I was contacted by the Miami Beach Garden Club to discuss a possible installation of the Blue Star and Gold Star memorial markers at Canopy Park. And I placed an item on the agenda to be referred to this committee as required by the city code. The Blue Star marker program has been in existence under the auspice of the National Garden Clubs for more than 79 years to honor the men and women of the United States Armed Services. They were adopted because they had become icons in World War II, and were seen on flags and banners in homes, churches, and businesses for sons and daughters that were serving our country at war. The marker that the Miami Beach Garden Club proposes to install at Canopy Park was originally dedicated to Key West, correct?
Correct, at the terminus of US 1, and it was the first it's the first Blue Star marker dedicated in the state of Florida.
And then it was gifted to you guys,
The Miami Beach Garden Club in 1980, installed here where the new Blue Star now lies at the terminus of Julia Tuttle and State Road 907, Alton Road.
And so the Miami Beach Garden Club refurbished that marker, and that was placed at on Alton Road. Is that correct? Because there's two of them.
Okay, so we purchased a new marker.
A new marker, right?
Decommissioned the one from Key West, and now we want to recommission it as a historical marker, as it is the oldest surviving marker known and also the first one in the state of Florida.
Amazing.
So there's a brand new marker on Alton Road, and now we have to
That's
find a
one
house.
by my house. When I
Correct.
go, let's say from Chase Avenue towards St. Patrick's or towards the Tuttle, people see it there on the median. It's a beautiful marker, and at times, during certain occasions in the year, the Garden Club places beautiful wreaths. Beautiful
Absolutely,
American
made by
flags.
Garden Club members, yes, and flags. We honor it that way every patriotic holiday.
And so tell us about the vision, about what's being proposed at Canopy Park.
Okay, so the vision for Canopy Park will serve a dual purpose. It will honor we will find a home for our twice displaced Blue Star Memorial marker. And
The original one.
The original one, the one from Key West, correct. It will find a home for it. It will be displayed as a historical marker, and it will have a plaque honoring all of the service, the service branches of the military, and it will also incorporate a gold star. The Gold Star honors, as you may know, the fallen, those who have given their everything for our freedoms. So we would have the historical Blue Star, a Gold Star, and a plaque giving the history of the Gold Star with the insignias of the 6 military branches. So that's
I want
our
to
vision.
thank you for your dedication and your interest in keeping this important part of our history alive. It's so proper for this to be in the city of Miami Beach, given our ties to the armed services, especially during war when they were training here. And I want to recognize our Parks Director, John Rebar, to guide us through staff's recommendation on this request from the Miami Beach Garden Club.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, the staff is fully supportive of this. We think it's great. It ties in with, the Miami Beach's history with the military in World War II, the VFW, very close to the park. So we're fully supportive. This plaque is recommended to go inside the park, not along the FDOT right-of-way. So this is something that can be handled directly by the Parks Department. And we support, if the committee would like to support it, we support taking this to the end. There is a fiscal ask between around $15,000. What is that for? That's to refurbish the plaques that they have and to do the installation.
But that's a very minimal cost.
Yeah, yes.
When we
it's not
consider
a
the
great
sacrifice made by those who we will be honoring with this marker, $15,000.
If I may add, it would also be, so there's Gold Stars and Blue Stars all over the country. However, Miami-Dade does not actually have a Gold Star dedicated. So this Gold Star would be the very first one in all of Dade and Monroe counties.
And that is something of significance. That would be great honor to our city. Madam Chair, I want to thank you for considering this item as the first item on our agenda, as our Parks Director mentioned, the tie to Miami Beach, to the role that Miami Beach played during World War II, where so many servicemen were training, and at this location, appropriately situated right across from the VFW. Makes it so symbolic and so appropriate. So thank you, Madam Chair, for considering this item. I would appreciate the committee's support so that we can send this back to the City Commission and honor this legacy.
Thank you, Commissioner Fernandez. And City Attorney, I would like to be a co-sponsor for this item if I could be listed. I'm fully supportive. I'd love to hear from the other members of the committee.
Yeah, you have my full support. This is a win all around, and I think it's a wonderful idea. Thank you, Commissioner Fernandez, for bringing it forward. And if you would like to move the item, I'll second it.
I'm not a member of the committee.
Oh, you're not? So I'll move the item.
I'll second.
Okay.
Yeah, and if I could be added as a co-sponsor, I think this is wonderful. And just one quick question, if I could, Madam Chair. From a legal standpoint, if there was a private donation to be made to cover the costs, obviously small cost like that we can cover as a city budget, but I had somebody that just reached out about wanting to participate in there. I'm not banking on it, so we'll kind of continue down the track as is, but just asking from a legal component.
We can
if
bring
this
a
person is
resolution.
interested, would they be able to make a private donation to cover that?
Yes, we take private donations and they're approved by resolution of the City Commission.
Okay. Let's not bank on it, but in the back pocket.
Thank you, Commissioner
I
Maxine.
may add that the verbiage on the plaque currently in Alton Road does say that it's in partnership with Miami Beach, and this one will also say the same thing. The gold one, the Gold Star, will also say the same thing.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, committee members, for your support.
Thank you, Commissioner. So moved by acclamation, and we'll go on to the next item, C40.
Number 5, it is discuss reorienting the city's code department to adopt a more proactive rather than reactive approach to enforcement and community engagement. And code will be presenting this
Is
item.
Commissioner Bott on Zoom?
She is on Zoom.
All right, let's allow her the opportunity to tee this up.
PJ, if we can make her a panelist, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Let me just tout the Western medicine and better living through science mantra. Not that there's anything wrong with other medicine, but from the way I felt yesterday at this time to the way I feel today at this time is like 180 degrees difference. So, but I have one more day of being contagious. So thank you for letting me call in to do this. I didn't want to give my cooties to anybody, even though they're on the outs. I wanted to bring this item. I think we have a terrific code department. They do incredible work. And I wanted to have them come before us and really talk about, give a public accounting for the work that they're doing and how much is inbound, how much is outbound proactive, if there are any opportunities to make things even better than they are. I feel like despite the good work that gets done, there is a lot that still needs to be done, and I'm trying to figure out how we can make that happen. Is it changing the orientation of what they do? Is it possibly hiring additional staff? Is it cross-training people in different departments and empowering them to if not actually issue violations, at least to enter it into a database so that code can go visit the site to address if there's a violation that needs to happen. We hear from residents all the time that they don't see everything, and that may be true. It doesn't mean that it's not getting done, but I know I personally have used the eGov app since it went online to report issues constantly when I see them, and that's a really productive way of doing things, but that's not, not everybody knows that. So that's why I wanted Code to come. I know Hernan, the director of the department, is out of town today, but his staff is here to present. So I'll turn it over. I'm not sure who's on tap for that, but let's turn it over to them and then take some questions afterwards.
Thank you, Commissioner Bott. And I'll let Code tee it up.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Stephanie Noah, Administrative Services Manager with the Code Compliance Department. So our research has found that in the last 2 years, only 12% of our calls for service were complaint driven. It is a sizable number, but in fact, it's a misnomer that code is reactionary versus proactive. And as far as addressing complaints or handling everything that we can, obviously our main mission is to ensure compliance, and we only have a small number of officers on a daily basis, and that's why we rely on our residents to, report to us these things so we can address them immediately and ensure compliance. We're open to see what other things we can do to try to handle all the things that we need to address to beautify our city. And with that, I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Stephanie. In looking at the analysis that the Code Department provided, it was interesting to see that the majority, 88%, was proactive, and you had other statistics that were in there. 12% was complaint driven. I think this is good feedback to have. I'd like to hear more from members here on the dais and visitors. Anybody have any comments before we check with the sponsor? Commissioner Fernandez?
Yes, thank you. So I do believe that there is a perception that code enforcement, in general regulatory matters, whether it be building or other stuff, in general, this is just a general perception, it's not just on code, tends to be reactive rather than proactive. Of the proactive engagements that code has done, is there a way to get a breakdown of, are those proactive engagements having to do with noise? Are they having to do with overgrown grass? Is it related to graffiti? Like, what is it? Because for some reason, our residents feel and perceive that it's rather reactive and that it's dependent on them placing a call. And perhaps, while a significant portion of enforcement might be proactive, it might be a segment of violations that are not really, what the residents are necessarily focused on. So is there a way to see that breakdown?
Absolutely,
It'd be great if that could be shared with the committee. Thank you.
of course.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Bott, is it okay to close this item and get an LTC from code with the information requested by Commissioner Fernandez?
With your permission, I'd actually like to continue it to next month. I have a bunch of questions that I don't want to put anyone on the spot because I don't think they're prepared to answer now. So I would prefer to have a conversation with Hernan and then have him come back and present it to the full group, if that's okay.
Sounds good. So we'll continue it. Our next public safety and quality of life meeting is February 12th. So we'll continue it to that meeting. And with that, we'll move on to item number 2.
I'm sorry, could you continue it to the next meeting after that? I'm out of town that week and I would like to be there for it.
Okay. What is the date of the March meeting?
That up and I'll put it for the March. I'll let you know.
Okay.
It's on my calendar.
Thank you all.
What is it?
It's on my calendar that I mailed.
Let me see if I have it. March 12th. So we'll move it to March 12th.
Thank you.
Continue to March 12th. Okay. Okay, item number 2.
Item number 2 is discuss take action on reestablishing a nuisance abatement board, and this is sponsored by Commissioner Bott. And
Commissioner Bott, tee it up.
Yes, thank you. So sort of a similar kind of vein. This was raised to me by a few different people, and I thought we should have a conversation about it to see if we have evolved as a city beyond where this was when it was put into place in the late 80s. We have different, better mechanisms, or if there's still a possible role for something like this in the city. And I wanted to have an open conversation with staff and our colleagues to get their input. So again, this is in furtherance of trying to sort of clean up our collective act and hold people accountable. The people who are doing a great job at running their businesses, that's great. We love it. But, they're being tarred and, with the same brush as people who aren't. And I'm trying to get us collectively away from that and hold the bad actors accountable. So that's the genesis behind this item, and I will turn it over to staff.
Hi again, Stephanie.
Hi. Good morning, Chair and committee members. Stephanie Noah, Administrative Services Manager with the Code Compliance Department. So in the memo, I was able to provide the history of a previous nuisance abatement board that we had back in 1987 until 2003 for abatement of criminal nuisances adequately addressed. And I have the city attorney here that's going to help me with this item.
City Attorney Rothstein.
Hi, good morning all, Madam Chair and members of the board. This work hand in hand with Chief Deputy Rob Rosenwald on. It was disbanded back in 2003 as it was felt at that time that there were other adequate measures that can take place, such as injunctive relief. Our office at least has been successful on one recent occasion involving 1776 Bay Drive, which was a party house and some other activities going on in the house, and we sued for injunctive relief. So that's one avenue, and that's what was cited in the memo as the reason for disbanding it. But certainly, if this commission has an appetite to go ahead and reinstate it, it would be reinstated pretty much on the same manner that it was initially created in 1997. I'm just not sure that there's a need, and I deferred to you guys for further direction.
Okay, so the city attorney's office doesn't feel that there's a need at this time. I'll weigh in with some of my observations. Usually these kinds of boards where residents sit in judgment of each other are not generally productive. And it was disbanded for a reason. The city attorney's office doesn't feel it's necessary. I'd love to hear from my colleagues and hear more from Commissioner Bott on this item. Yeah, Commissioner Magazine.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to hear from the sponsoring commissioner, because I'll of course defer to her. But with city staff's recommendation, of course, any place is going to go through its ebbs and flows. I do feel as if we're in a materially different place as a city than we were 18 months ago. You don't hear that screeching of the tires 24/7, the loud kind of anything goes crowd. And it's important that we remain focused on that and be nimble in the event that that starts peeking its head out again. But I think I'm comfortable with staff's recommendation, but I would like to defer to my colleague that's sponsoring and see where she wants to go.
Okay, Commissioner Fernandez.
Yeah, so I just have a question. I'm looking at the old ordinance from 2003, when the committee was disbanded. And so a public nuisance was deemed any place or premise within the city that may be declared a nuisance according to Florida statutes, or that have been used on more than 2 occasions within a 6-month period. And then it lists, oh, there's the dog there. That is not Sammy barking.
Sorry, that was Esme.
That was Esme. There you go.
She's with us even when she's not with us.
And then it lists six items that would classify a location as a public nuisance: a site of unlawful sale or delivery or storage of controlled substances, which we've been able to shut down establishments for that in our city. For example, I recall there was a resident that called to complain about an establishment on Lincoln Road, 2 establishments on Lincoln Road. And through an undercover investigation, Code was able to go in, we shut them down, we revoked their licenses. In fact, now I think we sponsored a commercial lease subsidy grant for a new churros and ice cream place that's gonna be going into one of those locations. So then another criteria is by a youth or criminal street gang for purpose of conducting a pattern of youth and criminal street gang activity. For prostitution or solicitation of prostitution, for illegal gambling, for illegal sale, consumption of alcoholic beverages, or for dealing in stolen property. My question is this: are we stuck to these types of issues, or can we change what the violations are? Does the state mandate what these violations are?
Yes, it goes through back to the chapters that are cited right in the paragraph right above that, Florida statute 823.05, 823.10.
And does the Florida statute allow other violations that are not included here?
I would have to go back and double check, but I don't think that the list is all inclusive, but it is limited to criminal activities. And one that's not mentioned is like row houses, but the building official certainly has the authority under Miami-Dade chapter 8, 5 or 11 to go before the Miami-Dade County Board to shut down a grow house.
But if an establishment is deemed to, or is found to, be a nuisance in our community, let's say, while you could go through, that county process, would this be a more efficient process?
Well, right now we have suspension of BTRs and shutting down businesses. So for example, the illegal gambling, we've had several of those type of machines found in various areas of North Beach and South Beach, that police goes in with code and then eventually they get shut down. So that's a faster path than going through a nuisance abatement board, having convene a board, fund the board, staff the board, and do other things like that.
It's like, for example, I believe Miami-Dade County might have a nuisance abatement board.
City of Fort Lauderdale definitely does, because I reached out
City
to
of Fort Lauderdale. And so what type of issues do they?
Criminal ones that are enumerated in the statute.
And so, like, for example, we've heard historically of establishments, certain establishments
on certain commercial corridors that, have been known to be a place that, might attract gang activity, for example, might attract drug activity. How, if we have the ability to shut them down now without a nuisance abatement board, why haven't we been able to?
It goes case by case. I mean, as far as I know, every time that there is an issue with, like illegal gambling, I'm not familiar with gangs. I'm not that involved in anything or currently pending that I'm aware of that has gang activities, but certainly the gambling machines have been the most recent ones and the ones.
But I think we all know, like, there's certain establishments that we've seen historically on certain corridors that I don't want to name out, and certain establishments that come to mind that I don't necessarily want to name out because I don't want to put anyone on the spot. But that, it's just common knowledge, I wouldn't go there just because, it's just kind of like common knowledge. It's, there's probably drug activity being dealt there. There's probably gang activity being dealt there. And there are areas where there are areas of the city that we've highlighted in the past as needing more police visibility because of the activity going on in these commercial areas. It's why we've deemed certain businesses as nuisance businesses. And it's why then we've created these incentives to replace these nuisance businesses. But, even when we do these legislations to declare establishments as nuisance businesses, they become legal non-conforming establishments. Wouldn't this be an avenue to help us weed out some of these problem establishments?
It would be, but we also have a civil forfeiture state statute that our office prosecutes on forfeitures if there is illegal activity going on in an establishment. So we've done that with homes, we've done that with businesses. So there are other avenues. So the question just becomes how do you want the city to prosecute these type of activities, whether it be through civil court, circuit court, or whether it be through a nuisance abatement board. The manager has the authority to suspend or revoke licenses. So it's really just the direction that this commission chooses, keeping in mind that almost a quarter of a century ago, it was disbanded.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Rothstein. Other jurisdictions are using it. If I were a voting member of the committee, I would be inclined to support it because we don't lose anything testing another tool. It's always better to have more tools in the toolbox because it doesn't take away, from my perspective, any authority or any ability to follow any other process. It's just an additional tool in the toolbox to go after problem establishments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Rosen-Gonzalez.
I have a few questions. Will this alleviate some of the strain on the special master?
No, because the special magistrate doesn't deal with criminal activities. It's civil infractions.
Criminal, okay, so civil and criminal. And Commissioner Bott, my question to you was, what made you want to reconstitute this board, just so that I understand where it's coming from? Xian.
My goal is to, and I don't know if this is the right vehicle to do it, but it was suggested as a possible option. My goal is to try to, we have lots of different avenues, but for instance, when I ask folks about a particular establishment that is known to deal drugs, the answer is, well, we have to do an undercover sting operation and then we can't do anything unless we catch them in the act, or, and they know we're coming. And so it's really impossible. And I know there are places like that have been open for years in South Beach and North Beach. And so, if there is another tool available to us in the toolkit that can layer on to what we're already doing, that maybe is just a different angle of attack to try to clean things up, I thought it was worth having a discussion about. Maybe there's an opportunity to, talk to the folks in Fort Lauderdale and get a better understanding of how they're using it efficaciously. They're not a city to squander their resources either. I don't know if I'm sure there's somebody from the police department in Chambers who might be able to give their thoughts on this. Would it help to have an additional avenue, additional recourse to pursue some of the sort of long-term, constant offenders.
A few more questions. And who would sit on this board, just so that I understand the constitution of it? I'm trying to find that here, but I don't see it.
Sure. I believe it's appointed by the commission. I can't find my glasses, so hold on.
So we each get an appointee, so it's residents.
It's residents. It was, let's see. Appointments to the board shall be for 2 years. Any member may be appointed by the city commission for not more than 3 consecutive terms. Appointments to fill a vacancy shall be for the remainder of the unexpired term. Any member who fails to attend 2 or 3 successive meetings without cause and without prior approval of the chairman shall automatically forfeit his appointment, and the city commission shall promptly fill such vacancy for the remainder of the term. So it's appointed by the city commission.
So it would be residents on the board that are looking at these establishments that have several violations, and
Right,
they
that
would have the power to shut them down.
Yes.
You know, on one hand, it does take the onus away from code, who our officers are out there, who might not want to shut them down. Look, we have so many boards in the city right now. I feel like every single agenda has more and more and more boards, and I do know that it taxes the administration. On the other hand, I'm not opposed to this type of board because I do think that there are certain establishments that we could be more proactive about shutting down. So I'm not opposed to a nuisance abatement board. I mean, this way we shift the onus to the residents. The question is, will the residents, are they going to feel so pressured to, shut down these establishments? Or I just don't know what's going to happen with that board. So that board is comprised of residents who are making decisions on our code to shut down businesses. And the liaison to that is code compliance is going to serve on that board, the police department too. I mean, Steve, would you be in charge of this board?
That would be up to my boss.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Kristen, I thought you were done.
No, I'd like to hear what you guys have to say.
I have a suggestion at the right time.
Commissioner Fernandez.
Just as a suggestion, it might be helpful because I like the idea of this, and one of the things that I see here, with code compliance and with once something goes to the special master, it all initiates with there being a violation. With this, the procedure for abatement, it commences with an employee, an officer, or a resident who files a complaint or request for prosecution with the city's nuisance abatement board regarding the existence on premises located in the city of a public nuisance. So it initiates, at the time, back in 2003, it initiated with a complaint that could be filed by the resident. So it's not solely reliant on code issuing a violation and something going before the special master, which I think we should test. Because I think a lot of times the frustration that we get from our residents is that they're experiencing nuisances. They're witnessing them. They're calling them in. They're issuing violations. And then the violations, get easily, mitigated down, they get, waived, whatever it may be, and the nuisance persists. And sometimes the violation becomes the cost of doing business. And so, to the extent that perhaps Commissioner Bond, as the sponsor of the item, you may want to consider putting together draft legislation of what this newly reconstituted abatement board would look like. It might be perhaps in the interest of the item to continue the item to give the sponsor the opportunity to put together draft legislation of what this new more modern version of this board would look like, so that perhaps the committee could consider that. Just a suggestion. Thank you.
Okay, Vice Mayor Bott, would you consider continuing this to the March 12th meeting?
Yeah, I absolutely would. I will also reach out to Fort Lauderdale to learn more about how they're doing it and what their parameters are. I wanted to point out to everybody that there are two things I wanted to point out. One was a little bit amusing that the fines from the board that was constituted in '87 and disbanded in 2003 are basically approximately where the fines are today. So I thought that was amusing, slightly disheartening, but amusing. The more serious thing is that under section 7232, conduct of hearings, there is very clear outlining that this is not going to be a gotcha board. This is going to be a board conducted with due process, with parties having an opportunity to present evidence and argument on all issues involved, to conduct cross-examination, submit rebuttal evidence, and be represented by counsel. It's going to be less iguana remediation and more board of adjustments in terms of, the seriousness and the responsibility of the board. And I do agree with my colleagues, the concern of the proliferation of boards and committees and all that. But I think if there is something where we have another avenue to deal with nuisance businesses or bad actors who just process their fines as, cost of doing business, or they don't really care, or they don't understand the process well enough to even know what's going on, this is another avenue to do better by our residents. And nobody knows their neighborhoods better than the people who live in those neighborhoods, who walk the streets every day with their kids or their parents or their dogs or going to and from work or whatever. And so there are things that even though our code enforcement and police department are looking out for, they don't live there and they don't see it all the time. And our residents can elevate concerns. And the goal is not to shut people down. The goal is to get them to clean their act up. We don't want to put people out of business. We want people to do business conforming to the laws like everybody else does. It's not that complicated. So that's why I want to continue this inquiry. I'm happy to continue it to March. And I appreciate the support from my colleagues.
Okay, thank you. And now let's move on to item number 3.
Okay, item number 3 is discuss a proposed ordinance to require notice to neighbors of impending trapping and extermination services, and this was sponsored by Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez.
Okay, the reason why I brought forward this draft ordinance is because there was an animal trapper in Mayor Dowd's neighborhood. I don't know if he called each of you to let you know what happened, but while they were trapping an animal, they took someone's cat and relocated the cat. And the person was devastated because they took the wrong animal. So he said, what could we possibly do to prevent something like that from happening again? So that is why this came up, which is allowing notice. And I know that this kind of...
It's a companion item to the one that I had. I'm fully supportive.
To yours. I would hate if somebody stole my cat, I'd be devastated, or trapped my cat by mistake, or, so I have no problem with these companies coming out and they're going to have to register with the city. What it says here is all owners of houses and buildings within the city shall provide notice by hand delivery or U.S. mail to every residence within 500 feet, 3 days prior to any planned animal trapping, so that they can protect their animals. I think it's benign enough. It allows for notice so that people can keep their animals indoors so that they don't get trapped unnecessarily or stolen. Apparently the cat was taken and placed someplace in Wynwood or something, and Mayor Dowd's partner was searching for her cat for days. She still hasn't recovered from losing her cat. So if you're supportive of this, then I would just move the item.
Okay, I'll second.
Commission. We could add this. We should really collapse this into your item and just make it, well, I guess they're companions, but not
it's
trapping.
fine.
Okay. All right. So
Commissioner Magazine, are you supportive?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so we'll move the item to the full commission, and then we'll go on to number 4.
Item number 4 is discuss take action on the dying tree population in North Beach Oceanside Park. And this was
Commissioner
sponsored
Rosa
by
Gonzalez.
Rosa Gonzalez.
So this item was brought to my attention by Elizabeth Latone, who, and several other people actually. Along the beach walk, we planted trees that then summarily all died, which is very sad. I don't know why they died. I don't know if they were watered, but what are we going to do about the dead trees? Because so many people have texted me pictures of them.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Lindsay Pracht, Assistant Director of the Environment and Sustainability Department. The North Beach Oceanside Park renovation included the installation of beach walk trees, and that was reviewed by city staff upon project closeout at the 1-year mark. Since the project closeout, many newer beach walk trees that were installed have not experienced sustained growth as a reaction to the constant salt spray that they experience being so near the ocean. It's also coupled with the dune's hot and dry environment. Many of these trees have either died or exhibit moderate to severe symptoms of decline as a natural demarcation line where the most vulnerable trees receive close direct salt spray. They're also not protected by larger sea grapes in some of these areas or the higher elevation of the dune system. Without natural protection, gumbo limbos and pigeon plums have experienced the most significant signs of decline. The only species besides sea grapes that appear completely unaffected are the silver buttonwood. Urban Forestry has been monitoring this item closely with the Parks and Recreation and Public Works departments. And the city has removed several dead trees in the intervening years since project closeout. The first grouping of trees that were removed were 38 trees in October of 2024, and then staff also did a secondary inspection in November of 2024, where 38 trees were removed along the east side of the beach walk in that event, and 13 trees along the park side as well. A multi-departmental walkthrough was also conducted with Vice Mayor Bott in mid-December, once most of those trees had been marked and removed by the city contractors. According to the urban forestry permit, 376 trees were installed under that permit along the beach walk, and the survival rate of those trees is 300 over 376, which is 80% for the trees closest to the beach walk in that area. The next scheduled evaluation for these trees will be the end of the the end of the dry season, right before the rainy season, because we do expect some of these trees to rebound and have newer growth within these coming months. However, as of right now, there are 180 trees that are currently defoliated with approximately 70% leaf loss, but no other symptoms or comorbidities. So those trees will be the main subject of that reinspection in May or June. Staff observations as a part of these inspections and going back out over the last several months include using sea grapes and silver buttonwoods as protective species to protect some of these less hardy trees like gumbo limbos, pigeon plums. We can also use these trees as barrier trees, clump them closer together, install smaller, younger trees that are more able to adapt and acclimate. Many trees, if they're installed at older or mature age, they're used to being nursery stock and they're not accustomed to these harsh environments. And then we also recommend longer watering and establishment periods for these trees because, again, it is a very harsh environment. We will also be reviewing the South Beach tree population along the beach walk that does appear to be doing well to take some of those lessons learned.
So 70% of the trees have lost their leaves, apart from the 76 that are dead.
It's
which would be like a 70% death rate.
So it's 180 trees that have approximately 70% or more defoliation. That is about 50% of the total trees.
Okay, so obviously we planted the wrong trees. You're gonna have to probably remove them. I know you wanna wait. How long do you wanna wait before you remove the 50% that died?
We're waiting to do another evaluation at the end of the dry season, right before rainy season.
Is the landscaper at all responsible for planting these trees that then die?
They were all healthy at the 1-year project closeout, so everything at the warranty phase was at the appropriate health.
And who made the decision to plant that type of tree that then died? Because this was a huge investment.
On paper, these trees should have done well. All of the literature on the species that were selected show that they do well in harsh environments, but in this area, they particularly were not protected by sea grapes and showed a decline.
And what was the cost? I just want to, let me finish my questions and then we'll move on. Oh, okay. What was the cost of planting all of those trees?
That was a capital improvements project, so I do not have that number in front of me. I can definitely look it up and bring that back.
This was probably like $1 million mistake.
Well,
I'm not laughing
just
about
one
it.
thing,
It's
if-
not.
I wouldn't call it a mistake, because on paper, the trees should have done well, and with climate, different things can happen with plant life. On paper, the plants in my balcony should do well, but I'm a black thumb, and they don't. So, I mean, things happen.
Okay. Well, we know that the sea grapes grow there well. I'd like to hear from all of you about what we're going to do. I mean, obviously, we have to wait a few months. You're recommending wait a couple of months till like when? April?
That's for the next inspection. So the dry season concludes at the May or June period, so we would go back out at that time. This item, there's a similar item that the Land Use and Sustainability Committee, where we are providing monthly updates on the GeoBond reforestation, and we're including this update in that update as well. We're also happy to provide an LTC once we complete that inspection on what was found.
Do they have watering mechanisms, or were you just hoping that they would, thrive?
It depends on the
native
area where
watering?
they were installed. Along the dune side, you want that area to be as natural as possible. So that side did not include watering. The trees on the park side did include a sprinkler system.
So the trees on the park side that were watered, did they survive?
Most of them, yes. They did have trees that also experienced decline. Most recently in that November inspection, 13 of the trees on the park side were removed.
So it's pretty much a question of water, right? Because only 13 trees on the park side were removed versus, 60 something.
That's one of them.
63.
They are also farther away from the ocean environment. They're more protected by additional trees. So it's multiple issues.
Okay, as you know, many people have complained about this.
Yes.
I know that you mentioned that Commissioner Bott wanted to
Yeah,
speak on
Vice Mayor
this.
Bott is online, ready to speak.
Okay.
Yeah, so, let's just remember that the 70 trees that we're talking about re-inspecting at the end of the dry season are defoliated, but are not dead necessarily. And so let's not bury them before they've died. To quote a Monty Python line from one of my favorite movies, "I'm not dead yet." So, that's from The Holy Grail, if anybody wants to pick it up. So these trees, look, they're generally hardy, and hopefully these little guys will rebound. This is a very complex planting environment. It is a lesson, lessons are learned. I think the suggestions that are made about how to group trees, how to bring in younger trees to prevent this from happening in the future is exactly what we need to know. It's a shame we didn't know it coming in, and that's a different conversation for a different time. We talk constantly about the fact that we are a heat island, and we have heat islands within our heat island, and the idea of making sure that we protect our natural environment and provide additional shade without blocking views and without changing the complexion of what the beach walk looks like is a very valid and worthy and necessary goal. We have had pockets of success, and we've had pockets of lessons learned, and we will fix them and move forward. I think to throw the baby out with the bathwater is not in anyone's best interest. And I've had many conversations and emails and photographs sent about this as well. But just because we didn't get it 100% right the first pass doesn't mean that it's not worth working to fix until we do.
Commissioner?
Okay, so I think we should leave this item on and come back to it in like 90 days and see the status of the trees. And I mean, I'm no arborist or tree expert, but I would recommend in the future, before we do a mass planting of 400 trees like that we do a test period, during one season and see how they thrive. Maybe you want to try. Maybe between now and 90 days, you want to plant 5 different trees and see which ones are thriving the best, and do a test run where you remove the other trees, just so that in 90 days, when, as you're doing these inspections, you can monitor something else. I don't know if that's something that you guys have planned, but I would go back to the drawing board and see, because maybe you plant something that really just starts to grow like a weed. And, you know, and I'm sure there's more native trees that could potentially grow on a shoreline. That would be my recommendation.
Okay. Commissioner Fernandez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I remember back in August of 2023, being in the Redwood Forest and getting complaints from our residents about our beautiful North Beach Oceanside Park being, you know, it was sad what was happening there. It was a natural, a grown environment. It was mature. So I just want to make sure this is the work that was done there was part of, what was it, the Phase 2 capital project?
I'm unsure of the exact phase.
Okay, all right. I think it was part of the Phase 2 project that you know, it garnered a lot of criticism due to the destruction of the mature foliage, and I think at the time the concern was, you know, we were destroying, you know, we were ripping out of the ground sea grapes, mature sea grapes. Let me ask you something. Which is the type of plant that has shown to have the most resilience in this environment?
The trees closest to the ocean that are experiencing the fewest stress symptoms are sea grapes and silver
Sea
bottomwoods.
grapes. So what we removed, in essence, that I asked the city administration by phone and in a memo that I disseminated in August of 2023 to not remove were the sea grapes. And the ones that now we have seen that have had the less stress are indeed the sea grapes. What we removed and what I had asked us not to remove. And sometimes, and I say this all the time, sometimes, you know, you look at manuals, you look at things, what they say on paper, you look at what engineers tell you. Yes, but there's a void between what things say on paper and the reality of a situation. And I think common sense just tells us sea grapes perform well. And my whole issue at the time was, this is a beautiful park. It had a cooling effect in a heated area of our city that's surrounded by concrete. And I was so saddened because it was one of these beautiful, charming areas of our city that was very overgrown, that was very natural, that was already mature. And yet we're coming in and we were, you know, ripping it out. And I had asked, and I brought forward an item, and I asked the administration to put together a plan to restore what had been removed. And nothing happened with that. It took Commissioners Rosa Gonzalez and Bod to bring an item now about this so that we can determine that indeed what we had there originally is what worked. We fixed something that wasn't broken and we created more damage. And that is really what is sad here. It was fine in its original state. And now we spent not only the taxpayers' dollars, but we hurt a natural environment. And so I, you know, let's go back, let's fix this. But just sometimes it's something being overgrown and being mature, it's fine. And it was fine at North Beach Oceanside Park, and it was sad when it happened there. And I think anyone can go drive by there now and say, yes, it looks beautiful the way that it is now. And an argument can be made about that. But that didn't mean that it wasn't beautiful and good the way that it was before. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So I'm going to make two separate motions here. My first motion is that we come back in 90 days and review the state of the 100 and how many trees are?
Approximately 180.
Of the 180 trees that are 70% leafless. What did you call them?
70% or more defoliation.
Defoliated. Okay. And my second motion would be, and I don't know if this has a cost because it might have to go to the commission for you to do a pilot program commencing as soon as possible, plant how many different trees do you think you need to figure out what grows along the beach walk and what doesn't, so that we don't? Well, we know that sea grapes grow, but, you know, maybe there's some other option, but we don't know because we haven't done any sort of testing or pilot. Why don't you, in the spaces, plant 5 different species of trees that are native, that could possibly grow along the beach walk, and then at the end of 90 days, come back and also tell us the status of those 5 trees. Do you have the funding to plant those 5 trees, or do you need us to go to the commission to fund something like that?
So as part of the Geobond reforestation project that we're planning right now, and we're doing the community outreach with beachfront property owners, the first phase of that project will include planting adjacent to city-owned properties where we can choose multiple species of native trees to see what would work. We would take these lessons learned as I've outlined, clumping trees together, using sea grapes and silver buttonwoods as barriers. We could definitely include 5 native trees in those planting pallets. My one recommendation would be is, as evidenced by the North Beach Oceanside Park, at the 1-year project closeout and warranty phase, all of those trees appeared healthy. So at the 90-day period, you may not see full results of what is successful or not. That's a longer term study.
But you're talking about, but it's very different to plant them next to a structure versus planting them on the beach walk.
No, so these would be as part of the beach walk reforestation, but they would be adjacent to things like city-owned parks, parking lots. There are areas where these city-owned facilities lead out onto the beach walk, so these trees would be planted along the beach walk.
Well, so my second motion, and if we need money to, okay, I understand that the sea grapes and silver buttons work, but why don't you pick 5 other species, plant them, and the second, do I need to bring that to the commission to plant those, to get the funding to plant those 5 trees, or can you guys handle that within the department? And is that something that I'm allowed to do? This is kind of a study. Does this have to go back to the commission?
The administration, if they want to do it, can do it. This committee cannot order them to do anything. You can make a recommendation to the city commission if you wanted to make such an order, but it sounds like what Lindsay is telling you is that they are willing and able to do what you're asking, so it doesn't require anything further.
Okay, so we'll come back in 30 days on the status of those other trees, and we'll keep it pending to see the status of the other 5 trees at, the 6-month mark too. Okay?
Just for clarification,
Vice Mayor Bod has a comment.
Yeah, I do think also, we do have a lot of learning with what has been planted over the last year and a half. So while I'm supportive of more learning always, I'm not sure what, 5 different species, since, species were selected by experts using science-based, determining what would thrive here. So to me, it feels like we've already done that, and we have the learning. Lindsay did an admirable job of explaining the things that they're going to be doing differently. I would perhaps say that before we start any further work on big reforestation projects that is the subject of all the conversation with the property owners, we make sure we really know what we've learned from this segment in North Beach so we don't repeat the mistakes. But I'm not sure we're going to get that in 90 days from now or even 6 months from now. I think it's a holistic review of what we've learned from this experience, and then apply that before we do anything else in the other parts of the city, and maybe do them more phased as opposed to all at once. I'm sure that affects the cost a little bit, but maybe that's something to think about as we consider the implementation stage of this. And also, whoever we get our trees from, I think a 1-year warranty is insufficient, and that should be something that we bring to the fore as we discuss with them.
Right now, we know of 2 species. I would like them to find 5 different species that we know thrive along the beach walk. And I don't think there's anything wrong with letting them experiment a little bit more. And by the way, I'm not asking them, I'm asking them to apply more science, lessons learned.
No, I
Few more
understand.
lessons learned. So,
I understand.
so
Through the
those were
chair,
my
I'm
two
sorry,
motions. I don't think there's, are you okay with those motions? Yeah.
I have a
Okay.
question.
Wait, could we repeat the motions, because we're a little bit unsure? I have the first motion to come back in 90 days to report on what?
I want them to come back in 90 days to report on the status of the 176 trees that are 70% defoliated right now.
Okay, and they said that they were gonna conduct a review in May or June. You want them to do something earlier than what they were planning on doing?
February, March, April. Yeah, why not? It's just a quick status update, so just bring it back. And then the second one is to try some different trees. This is just, you know, and if we're not doing, if we're just doing that conversationally and we're not doing it and report back on that in 6 months.
Can I make a comment on this, Madam Chair?
Of course.
Thank you. I think this is an environment that's been established way before any of us were here. We know what works here. There is just common sense. There are certain trees and plants that have been existing in this area for decades upon decades upon decades upon decades. We don't need to test this again. Introducing something new for what? For it to die again? And we waste staff's time and money. And so I think it's commendable what you're trying to do. And I don't want to, say it's a bad idea. I just think, it's just common sense. Look at what nature has allowed to prosper there and build upon what nature has done. And we don't need to, reinvent the wheel here. Palm trees actually grow really well there. The sea grapes, grow really well there. And there's just a certain set of trees that have shown to prosper there. Just build upon that. And it's not complicated. And next time, let's not destroy it. We spent the taxpayers' dollar to deforestate an area that was mature and well, and I asked our city to stop it. And we only deforested it, then to come and reforestate it with plants that then dried out and lost their foliage. So let's just build upon what we know that succeeds there. All right, with that, I'm done.
Thank you. Elizabeth Latone?
If you could please unmute yourself, you have 2 minutes. You're still muted?
Hi, can you hear me? Okay, I'm unmuted.
Yes.
I first of all, I appreciate you all addressing this because it is a really big problem. And I agree with Commissioner Fernandez. Also, I'd like you all to take a look at the application, the original application that was sent to the Forestry Service for the United States government. I'm going to send that to you all because there are not any trees to be planted between 41st and 74th. I think that there's information that people are working off of. They don't have the full picture. But I did a full public records request going back all the way to the history of this whole debacle. And I think I'm going to send that to you all so that you can study it before you plant any more trees. And also, I don't understand the whole North Shore Open Space Park cutting down every single thing up there and then planting, the buttonwoods and things like that. Even in Allison Park, they're dying, which nobody's addressed. But I wanted to say I appreciate you all taking the time to address this. And thank you very much.
Is there an issue, Madam Chair, with this vendor? Like, did we procure these plants from a vendor that, for this amount of trees, even if it exceeds the warranty, it's only a legal term on a document that places an onerous on the provider to replace them if they die. But if after that warranty we see a pattern of them dying, might there be an issue? Because now we're hearing from a resident that in another area of our city, in another park, something similar is happening. Are these being procured from the same vendor?
The two projects that were mentioned, no, it's not the same vendor.
It's a different vendor. Okay, so maybe we learn from this and, we don't continue putting these along the coast, along the beach walk.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I could. I'm going to stay in my lane. I'm certainly not an expert here, but I'm asking for my own personal feedback, I guess, if anything. What is idiosyncratic or unique about this specific location? Did we plant a different type of tree or plant that we haven't planted elsewhere? I get what you're saying about the rough elements, and it may have looked good on paper. I guess I could look good on paper and be a good catch, but look how that's worked out, right? For this, why is this area unique, right? Is it a different type of plant?
There could be very site-specific elements that are different in North Beach than, let's say, South Beach, for example. North Beach is an erosional hotspot. It tends to have a narrower beach. It has to be renourished more frequently, whereas South Beach is a very wide accretional beach. It has 20-foot tall dunes in elevation. So there are more protective areas of our beach. So the trees that are doing well on South Beach could be better protected. This area is also known to be a wind tunnel.
So it's not as if we went out and tried some experimental type of species. This is a type of plant and tree that has worked elsewhere, didn't work. And this isn't like finger pointing, but mistakes this consequential. We can't make them. Simple as that. I don't know of a good way to mitigate that, but that's not finger pointing. That's just all of us collectively wanting to do better and be good stewards of taxpayer money.
Okay, Mr. City Attorney, where are we with the motions? Can we move forward?
The first motion, yes, you can come back with a report on the condition of the trees
March 12th.
in 90 days. The second motion I guess would be for them to come back in 6 months and report on their agreement to test 5 plantings of a tree, if I understand that's what they intend to do.
Okay, so let's see here.
Should we be planting these types of trees where we don't have irrigation?
June 18 for the 6 months report. Commissioner Fernandez?
Should we be planting these types of trees where we don't have irrigation?
What we're proposing as part of the lessons learned is to do a longer watering period. So we have the contractor who's installing these plants come out more frequently for longer periods of time to make sure that we're supplementing the irrigation that is not present within the dune system.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to the next item. Everyone clear with what needs to happen? Okay, number 1.
Item number 1, discuss utilization of 7605 Collins Avenue as a potential base for operations for ocean rescue. This was sponsored by Commissioner Rosen-Gonzalez and co-sponsored by Commissioner Suarez.
Commissioner Rosen-Gonzalez, if you'd like to tee it up.
This idea came from North Beach residents who are who've been very upset about one of the west lots being taken by the fire department. It's been a temporary location that they've been in for almost a decade. And, it doesn't look so great. It takes away the parking that people need in North Beach. And so we thought that a simple move over of, we went with the fire department and the lifeguard union, the CWA, and they love the space. We already have Surfrider there. I know that the space was purchased with building department funds, but we thought that we could do a simple lease for a small amount in order to, accommodate. Oh, by the way, if we did move the lifeguard, the CWA and lifeguard to that space, we wouldn't have to reconfigure the inside of the space because the general public wouldn't be going there. So I don't really know how you feel about this. Either way, I was trying to find a solution because even though they are building new headquarters for the lifeguards there, it's many moons away. When we spoke to Capital Improvements, they haven't even really started to configure the project, and it's part of a larger project with the county. So I thought in the interim, we could move the lifeguards off this lot, free up that lot. But I'm not wedded to it either way. So, if you guys wanted to make it for the building department, that's fine. But it seems like this house is an odd location for the building department. It's a residential house. And I don't really see how you accommodate it so that the public will enter it in a normal kind of commercial way. And we would save a lot of money if we move the lifeguards there, because we wouldn't have to make it, all of these accommodations. So, where are you guys on this? Do you want to speak?
Let's hear from the city.
Okay.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Vince Hayhouse, Building Department Director and Building Official. The purchase of the 7605 Collins Avenue house does have a building department use. It's not necessarily for all the public. It was going to be a north branch, if you would. We have it earmarked for our call center and for a remote office, of which we currently are renting a commercial space at some great expenditure, whereby we can use this space and limit that expenditure on a regular basis and now have an asset. That said, there's also a meeting for the public scheduled for February 6th at 4 p.m. And again, my understanding from previous discussions with fire is if they didn't get the whole house, they were not interested. So I'll defer to my colleagues in the fire services.
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. Deputy Chief Linares, back in November, we went out and looked at the property. We also went out with CWA presidents and the fire chief and viewed the property, and it is quite small to divide. The area inside is quite small to divide the 18 personnel that we will be needing in there. If we had to divide it, then we probably would rather defer. And we also have some other notes on the trailer area that we are currently using right now, where we would have a plan to reduce the footprint that we're using by 4,500 square feet, which would give us approximately 8 to 12 parking spots to help alleviate parking for the residents in that area. So that's where we were at in November, and really nothing has changed. So we're looking for some direction from you guys.
So what I would recommend is that we just move this item to the March meeting and see what happens when we have public input. And then after that meeting, I'll report back to you guys and let you know what I found. One of the other reasons that we like this space is because there has been a lot of criminal activity in that park. So if you put lifeguards and firemen in that area, I think it will probably reduce the attractive, the appeal of homeless and criminal activity in that area. So that's the second reason why we wanted to do this. So if it's okay with both of you, let's wait for the community meeting. We'll see what the community has to say about this. And Vince, if you'd like to meet in between so I could find out exactly what you're paying per month on the building department lease, I would like to understand that too, so that, we're not, because I saw that storefront. It didn't look like a very expensive storefront. I can't imagine that it's that expensive.
Current Florida prices are not inexpensive, I could promise you that. But yes, I'll look at the budget, and we could definitely have a meeting and go over what those numbers look like.
Because first of all, it wouldn't be a permanent thing anyway. It would just be until their headquarters were built, okay, which would free up that lot. And by the way, it would also give you an opportunity over the next few years to draw up how you really want to reconfigure the inside of the property, if at all. I mean, it's the building department's asset. And possibly, I know fire doesn't want to pay 1 penny to do this move, but we could find out what the lease is that the building department is currently paying and possibly find out if that would not be a huge expenditure for us to take from the general fund and reimburse the building department in a lease. Do you understand, in the interim, until they get their permanent headquarters?
I understand what you're asking, and again, I would have to sit down with legal as well to verify that we don't run afoul with any Florida state statutes, specifically 553.80.
What is that?
Okay, 553.
553.80. Of course we don't
I'll
want
get
it.
into the weeds if you want with the other subsections, but that's the general one. And again, I'll get you that information with the lease, and we could discuss those items in further detail.
Okay, I want to make everyone happy. I'm not looking to kick the building department out. It just seemed like an easy way to remove these guys from the trailer for the time being, free up a parking lot. The neighbors surrounding have really, there's no blame for the parking, but it's very unsightly. And those lifeguards have been in a trailer for a decade. And if you go in and you see the circumstances that they are operating under, I think that putting them oceanfront on the east side of Collins Avenue in the middle of a park so that we have a public safety a component it's just a win-win. So I'd like to speak with you and get you on board, Vince, in some way so that you're happy. And we're not violating,
I am happy. I'm not getting shot at.
5.3.80, okay?
553.80.
Oh, 553.80, okay.
And we've alluded to the community meeting. It's February 6th from 4 to 6:30. It's in person only at 7605 Collins Avenue.
Okay, wonderful, and we'll reconvene.
And Vice Mayor Bach has a comment.
I just had a quick question for Chief Linares. What is the plan? Where are we on getting a new permanent home for your guys up there?
It's, from what I understand, it's taking a little bit of time, additional time, obviously.
Is there a plan in place though?
We had a meeting. There is actually GEO bond funding, and the new headquarters would be part of a larger county complex. If you go up there and you see where the county is, has its equipment, they're building a large facility there. But they are at the very, very beginning. I would say they have not even commenced they're just at the beginning of some sort of conceptualization. As you know, Commissioner Bott, because there's several agencies involved, it could be an additional, 5 to 10 years before everything's done. Even when we begin that facility, we don't know that the GEO bond funding that we got in 2018 is even going to fund that. So in the spirit of, we also liked the idea that the lifeguards and the Miami the lifeguards and the surf rider testing the water were also in the same facility. That was another synergy. That was a positive one. I just have to, I see here, convince our building director that this would be somehow a positive thing for the building department, and find out what they're paying in commercial lease and how we can somehow mitigate that if possible. And by the way, know that this would not be it's not a permanent fix, but it's better than a trailer, and there's a lot of added value to it. So let's see what the community has to say and come back in March, if that's okay with everyone.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next item, number 14.
Item number 14 is discuss possible suggested building department process in connection issuing building violations for small, older, and or historic buildings with goal of reducing costs. This is a building item, and it was sponsored by Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez and co-sponsored by Dominguez.
14, and so we initially, Commissioner, were going to have a sunshine meeting on it, and then it didn't come to fruition because the employee at the time left, and so here we are to discuss potential processes here.
So Vince, would you? Would you like to tee us off, Vince, and let us know what you feel about this?
Well, legally, I have to be consistent with the application of my fees and with the application of fines. Keep in mind that fines are the stick that keeps society in line. I would also reference a commission agenda item, R5M, whereby you're actually going to be adding more enforcement. So this is kind of discombobulated or at ends with that piece of proposed legislation as well. However, in light of some of these identified issues, the Building Reprieve program for violations has been approved, and it is in effect. We are already reducing the recertification fee for these existing buildings, and we've made or actually you all passed the reduction in fees with any repairs associated with building recertification. When we discuss violations of the code, let's be clear. We're making an addition or an alteration to a structure, all right? Generally speaking, an aged structure, okay? Without documents, without plans, without a design professional or a licensed contractor involved, we can jeopardize and do jeopardize the public. Even if it's something very pedestrian like an outlet, you can cause a fire. So again, trying to throttle back, and I understand that the public wants relief, but at the same time, they need to understand bad behavior will not be rewarded with a pass. It cannot be rewarded with a pass. If we make one exception or one appeasement, we're opening the door, and then basically we're losing all our power. And again, we have to be consistent across the board.
Vince, when will the consultant be done with his analysis and provide information to the city commission?
Related to the ad hoc committee recommendations, we're already running with those recommendations. We're adding additional inspectors for the private providers. We're bringing back the walkthrough process. So as plans are going through, you have a face-to-face opportunity to go through those, okay? Again, we're moving by leaps and bounds. We have over 30 items that we've implemented based on ad hoc recommendations to go forward. So again,
All right,
we've
here's what
taken
I'll ask.
major.
Commissioner, we brought this item back in September. Many things have changed and improved since then. I think I would ask that somebody from your department send an LTC of an update, what the latest improvements have been, what has been implemented. I know I picked up a couple things that'll be on the February 3rd commission meeting. And we close this out, we can bring something new if needed.
Yeah, I don't love the idea of discounting violations. But I do understand the situation that our smaller buildings across our smaller historic buildings are facing. Could there be certain violations that aren't considered, like bad or something that you find that you could discount? Are there like a certain set of, like if we looked at all the different violations that you have, is there any way that we could provide some sort of financial relief? We're doing the research, we got the discount for recertifications, and that includes these smaller buildings too, correct?
Yes, ma'am. And not only that, keep in mind, our fines and our fees are consistent with Miami-Dade County as well. So it's uniform. There isn't an additional bonus fee or fine just because you're in Miami Beach. So it's consistent basically throughout all 35 municipalities in Miami-Dade County.
I would close this item out. The only thing that I could suggest that we do to help the smaller buildings is possibly look at some of the data and figure out what are the major violations that you're issuing, and then do some sort of community outreach to all of these property managers and say, here's what we're finding across the board. Here's what you can do to proactively cure this violation based on the new code. You're smiling. Does that seem like something that you don't want to do?
That's my second item with our consultant, Bob Moran, is correcting violations and avoiding getting into those situations. It's generally work without a permit.
What I would like to do is actually not do the outreach so much to the property managers as much as the condo associations. I don't know how, do we have a database of those condo associations that we could reach to create some sort of, so you're looking at educating. I think education is, what's the biggest violation that you find?
Work without a permit.
Oh. And there's no way. I was trying to simplify what work needed a permit and what work didn't. Did you ever go through any of that and find out like what might not need a permit?
Chapter 1 of the Florida Building Code is very, very broad. Any alteration, change of equipment, demolition, all those things require a permit.
Okay. All right, so I don't really see what we could do apart from possibly giving direction that we do some community outreach based on top violations for condo associations. I think that would be something proactive. That way they come in, they have access to Vince and his team, if you brought the whole team in, and they could have these, conversations with you so that there's not, so much panic, and we're creating that course for the property manager so that they can't go in front of the special master any longer and say, oh, we didn't know that we couldn't do this work without a permit? Because it's the property managers that are suggesting that these associations do this work without permits, probably, correct?
In that situation, I can't get to who pulls the trigger on authorizing the work without a permit or whatnot. It could be a resident, it could be the management company, it could be the maintenance person. I'm not involved in that. I just show up once the violation is there, and my inspectors verify that it's there, and we cite it as appropriately needed.
Are you guys already doing community outreach on the violations?
And there is a database, by the way, on the condo associations. We use that to notice, and we also use that database when we're posting our recertification requirements. Now, are we already working on a public information campaign? Like I said, we do have Bob Moran, the consultant. That's one of the various public outreach that we're going to do. And again, everyone that's been coming in with a recertification, we've let them know any repairs associated with it are approved by the ordinance from last session with the 50% reduction in the fee, and any repairs resulting from having to correct any issues with the structure or the electrical components or life safety components will be at the reduced residential rate. So we are informing the public.
Okay, so I think we can close this item out if they're already going to do public
I
outreach.
agree, and I still want the LTC with the update of what's been implemented so far and what's coming down the pike. All right, let's move on to item number 13.
Item number 13 is discuss the From the Get-Go initiative that aims to overhaul the building permit review process by ensuring that all necessary items are identified during the initial submission and review. This was sponsored by the mayor.
This is Mayor Minor's item. He is on vacation. He still wants this item to be heard. Vince, if you could tee this up.
Absolutely.
Oh, Danny, did you have something to say on behalf of Mayor Minor on this item?
Yes, hello. Basically, he just wanted to hear the presentation that Vince and Maria, he wanted the committee to hear the presentation that Vince and Maria have prepared.
Thank you.
Good morning, Maria Hernandez, Interim Assistant City Manager in charge of building. We have specified very specific things in the memorandum of what has already been done at the building department and what's getting done in the next few months. It is basically a complete overhaul of the building department, and this is something that we have to thank you all for appointing the ad hoc committee, which has been instrumental in guiding us along the way. Also Bob Moran, who's been an amazing consultant. He's also a resident, which makes him even better. He's been great to work with. And it has involved over 200 people within the building department that have had hours and hours and hours of meetings and realignment of how the building department does business. And it's going to go from what used to be a very enclosed environment after COVID to a very open environment back again. Starting with the biggest thing, which is that we're bringing back walkthroughs. And this is something that everybody has wanted. I know, Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez, that you had a very bad experience with, you know, some spaces that you know of. And I think that if we would have had walkthroughs available, none of that would have really happened. I mean, it's just something that when you come to people and you talk to people, you solve things. It's just human nature. You have your professionals in front of you and you can get it done. So this is something that we're bringing back first as a pilot, which is getting set up right now, and then as a phase 2, and this has been Vince's mission because he's been staffing the entire building department with all the vacancies that we've had for at least a year, bringing back people and working on that, because you have to have a full staff in order to be able to bring the level of the building department to a different level, a more residents first level, a more customer friendly level. So it's all getting done. The ad hoc committee, who we thank entirely, has already sunsetted. But all of their recommendations we're taking forward. We're even bringing back a division for private providers, which is very important even for the developers. And we're going to be helping a lot of the businesses also that need a lot of hand-holding, especially when it comes to COs, certificates of use, and BTRs. And to your point, Commissioner, we're putting together a whole ad campaign. There's a video that's been put together, as well as a lot of brochures that we're handing out. And we're planning to take some of this information on the road, a road show, like we did for the GeoBond. We're going to be reaching out to MBU and to different associations to show them what we're doing. Because if people don't know what we're doing, it doesn't do us any good. So we're going to be doing that too.
So a resident that wants to do, for example, I'm sorry, I didn't even ask to speak. Okay, let's say I'm remodeling my bathroom, right? And I just want to draw it, and I'm putting, change of fixtures. What are the requirements in order to get that permit? I mean, do they need to get a plumbing, inspector, like a plumbing engineer? Just a plumber to pull the permit?
So that's going to be one of the work classes for an interior renovation of a bathroom or a kitchen, all right? And as long as there's no exterior work involved, there are certain divisions within the permitting process that won't have to see it, okay? So automatically, it's a streamlined permitting process. That's one of the piloted work classes that we're going to be launching with the walkthrough program. And to your question, what you would require is, first and foremost, every permit starts with the application.
Okay.
The cost affidavit, okay, so we could do the substantial improvement, substantial damage that we have to enforce both through the Florida Building Code, our local ordinance, and the NFIP and Code of Federal Regulation 44. So once that initial launch is submitted, then what we need is a drawing or a plan. Now, dealing with a condominium, we have something called condo docs. So some of those layouts and floor plans are already generated there. I can utilize those, okay, going forward, and you do not have to get a design professional as long as those conditions are still the same. Any alteration from what you get approved through your walkthrough process will compel a revision, okay? Now, to your ends, when you say a bathroom remodel, changing fixtures, and perhaps the most common is changing a bathtub to a shower because of, mobility issues, if you will, as we get older. Yes, you will need a primary building permit, okay? And you're gonna need a plumbing permit just to make sure that that liner isn't leaking to the unit beneath, okay?
would
That
I
the
be able-
drains are installed.
Okay, let's say that I'm a resident, I'm going in, I want to remodel my bathroom. In this walkthrough, would I be able to go in with this drawing, get my master building permit, and then just have the plumber come and get his permit to pull it, and that's it?
He could even come with you.
Wonderful. That would be great. And for the electric part, I know that before, when you were trying to do like a bathroom remodel or a kitchen remodel, you wanted, even though a licensed electrician was going to pull the sub permit, I think on the master permit, you guys were requiring an electrical engineer to stamp that. Do we need that requirement if you're hiring a licensed electrician and you're just changing an outlet?
No, a state licensed electrical contractor can do a load calculation, okay? They're authorized to do so. They do have to sign the document, all right? Just provide their license number, give me the information, and a notary has to verify that. Contractors are regulated under Florida Statute 489, all right? Engineers and architects are regulated under separate chapters, 471 for engineers, 481 for architects. They have the ability within their statute on how to affirm, sign, and seal, and protect their documents, be it a raised seal, rubber stamp, or a digital signature. Contractors do not have that. Hence, when they do their calculations, we need a title block or an information, perhaps something on their letterhead that tells me, A, who you are, B, that you're licensed, that you're current, and that this signature is authenticated, hence the notary requirement, whereby an engineer or architect has that raised seal that they just signed, date, and that seal or that rubber stamp affirms that it's them, okay?
Okay, but let's say I live, single family home, I'm pulling the permit as an owner builder, I'm my own contractor, and obviously my subs, my plumbing and mechanical, whatever, they're all gonna be permitted. Can we issue to a resident that master permit so that they can be the contractor on that and they don't have to hire the expensive designer and then have those subs pull the separate permits. Are we allowed to issue that to a resident as an owner builder?
First
I
and
think that's
foremost,
important.
the exception for contracting is 49.103. And that stipulates a value.
I'm not laughing at you. You're just so funny. What is that? 490?
49.103, it's exceptions from contracting.
Okay.
Okay, so to behave as an owner builder, there are limitations in the statute.
Okay.
Starting with value, you have to occupy the residence. You can't be renting it out or have it for sale within a year. So there are several criteria that first and foremost have to be satisfied before we even get there. On top of that, when we're talking about the design professional aspect, again, the exception provides for a value limit on what you can and can't do without a contractor. Now, a design professional, again, goes back to 471 and 481. Those are the statutes that regulate those. And there's also values and limitations onto what a contractor can design or an owner can design. The minute you need calculations, that's it. You have to get a design professional, period, no negotiation. Now, if it's a swap out of a cabinet, or again, we go back to the example of a bathroom, perhaps a tub to shower, which is basically, I want to say 75% of the work classes observed, that can be submitted by a licensed plumbing contractor, either in the state of Florida or a master contractor in Miami-Dade County. And again, the criteria for them affirming the scope of their work, I would need prior plans, perhaps, that have been submitted that show the actual condition, because that's the one thing. We're not gonna, at that point, start approving or verifying or providing a venue for less than scrupulous individuals from legalizing or after the facting non-permitted work, okay? So we need a reference document that's already been generated in order to avoid having to go the design professional route, and there's a maximum amount of value there as well.
So I couldn't, as a resident, go in the morning, draw my bathroom, knowing that I have, obviously, tile person isn't like permitted. I guess that would be under the building. Okay, I want to remodel my bathroom, but I know that if I just pull my plumbing permit and the inspector goes in there and sees that I'm doing some tile work, I'm going to get a building violation, right? And that's not what we want.
You'll fail
So we
the
wanna do
inspection
this
and be
legally.
compelled
So
to
I would
get
like
the
a
other
resident to be able to go in, draw what they're going to do, and then get their different, and then get the different steps. We can't do that.
Yes and no. Generally, no, you can't. Again, it depends on the value. That's one, and that's the
But
limit
that's what
in
I was
the
going to
other
ask. What is
statutes.
that value? How much is that?
Okay, it depends. If we're talking an architect, it's $25,000. If it's anything,
But if I'm the owner builder and I want my master building permit so that I can do my bathroom renovation.
my requirement is that you get a reference document. Go to the microfilm record of your property, okay, and get the last plans that show that that condition is there, that you're not moving the
So
tub,
that's all
the
you
shower,
need. You don't need
etc.
anybody to sign off on that.
Again, and then I need the person that's gonna be installing or applying. There could be a plastic liner, they could be doing a liquid applied tub liner, shower liner. There's different things. And again, if we're dealing also with fire rated walls or structural walls, how are you buttressing that? There are several components. It's not a one size fits all. Now, when you come in through the walkthrough process, if you hit one of those hiccups, you're getting it from the horse's mouth right then and there. Okay, so we could provide you the guidance. Hey, look, go downstairs real quick to the records department, pull up any microfilm, and we could see exactly what your condition is.
Okay.
All right,
So the idea-
and that way you are getting ahead of, I guess, the curve, if you would, and you already have something to work from. Now, again, I caution you, because as things get added to those scopes, you start reaching those thresholds. After a certain threshold, you are obligated to get a design professional and do the whole thing. And you could still use that microfilm or that record request as a reference document showing, hey, we haven't moved the tub, we haven't added a bedroom, we haven't made any significant alteration. Okay?
Okay, well, we answered, this is the type of seminar that we need to do with residents so that they understand that they can come in, pull the plans of their house, a survey, right? All you need is a survey, right?
No, not a survey. Well, if you want to just do a fence, perhaps a survey, but then you're going to have to go, since it's something exterior, you're going to have to go to zoning. So it depends. Depending on the scope of work, you were talking about a tub. I need to know the floor plan. I need to know the layout, what's physically there, what's actually there that we're going to go, and then prescribe and tell me what
Can
kind
they
of
take
liner.
a picture of it and put that on the plan? Like, I want to make it as easy as possible. Like, if you can get around the state statute to make it easy, if they could take a picture of their bathroom and pin it to the, and pin it to the application so that they don't have to pay the additional $1,500 to have that drawn. That's a big difference between somebody doing something illegally and getting a violation or going and pulling. I want people to say, you know what? It was so easy to renovate my bathroom.
I understand.
Because Vince, our building director, is so wonderful and accommodating.
There's no getting around statutes. Those are the enabling legislature.
But I have a
that
question.
establish the Florida Building
Commissioner,
Code.
yeah, it's a minor's item, I get it. Commissioner Fernandez.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. So you mentioned certain state statutes and certain building codes. Are these building codes in the Florida statutes, or is it a different document?
Okay, Florida statute, get ready for another one, 553, is the enabling legislation for what we refer to as the Florida Building Code.
Yes.
So the Florida Building Code becomes your administrative code, the details.
Understood. So, but there's a Florida Building Code Commission.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is it possible let me ask you this, is it possible to pass a local amendment to the code, to the Florida Building Code?
Absolutely, as long as it's more restrictive than the building code, never less restrictive. Correct.
And is it possible how often does the Florida Building Commission meet?
Well, the Florida Building Code gets adopted triannually, and currently we're in a modification period for the 2026 edition of the Florida Building Code that would take effect December 31st of 2026.
Okay, and have we sat down to discuss issues that might be unique to Miami Beach that we may want to bring to the attention of the Florida Building Code Commission that we may want them to consider? Like, for example, I think what my colleague is mentioning to help streamline, like if this is something simple that you can do your own, drawings for without having to hire another person. Is this something that we can, send an urging, that we can reach out, that we could lobby as part of our state lobbying efforts to the Florida Building Commission to consider?
There's already, so the framework of the statute, that's the general enabling legislation, and the details come to us through the code. And there's provisions in Chapter 1 as to what requires a design professional, and then the statutes that regulate those design professionals have other restrictions and requirements, and that's where those other thresholds come in and the exceptions,
But when I hear restrictions and requirements, I hear red tape and bureaucracy, time and expense for residents and taxpayers, which we want to be able. You see, I would value, you telling us what we could urge the Florida Building Code Commission to change to help create a more efficient process. There's things we can do locally, but not everything is locally. A lot of times we find ourselves with our hands tied and saying we're preempted by the state, by 883.50 or by, something else. And so, what are these things? If you could help us identify what are these things that we might want to ask the state to amend so that we can create a more efficient process for our. I trust and I believe that there is no legislature more committed and no state government more committed right now to making a more efficient process for homeowners and residents than the current administration. And we should use this opportunity to advocate on their behalf, because this might be one of those rare occasions where our local government and our state government might align in agreeing on something, which is efficiency, cutting red tape, and making a more streamlined process, permitting process for our residents.
I'm definitely happy to sit down and go over the minutia of the several pieces of legislation involved and what we can try and initiate. the bad word of preemption does come up quite often, but there's additional local requirements that aren't here in the beach that come through us through our bigger brother, bigger sister of Miami-Dade County. For example, Durham is one that if you're doing an alteration interiorly over 160 square feet, now you have to go to them, and that adds an additional layer of red tape, to quote you, Commissioner. So yes, I'm happy to sit up. We could set up a meeting offline to not bog down the committee too much, and we could go over some initiatives that I think would definitely push the needle in this direction. And the fact that the appetite is here, I don't think it's exclusive, but I do want to remind everybody, just as when I discussed the violations, a lot of the building code, unfortunately, you may look at a black and white sheet of paper, but it's actually written in a lot of accidents, bloods, and disaster.
Sure, and that's understood.
And that's the balance that they're trying to.
Our priority is always to look out for the safety and well-being of, and prioritize life and property.
Correct.
And so understood that we don't want to do that. But sometimes certain things get outdated. Sometimes in their implementation, they're determined to at times even be redundant.
Absolutely,
And
technology changes.
And technology changes, and so given that we are in this period of revision, it'll be a good time, I feel, for us to get together and see what those efficiencies could be.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Vince.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to move this to the full commission, and that way we can take action there on future items, and the mayor will be present to give additional input. Okay, item number 18.
Item number 18 is discuss potential locations for the relocation of the Sanitation Department Operations Office, which is currently located on the first floor of 17th Street Parking Garage. This was sponsored by Commissioner Dominguez.
Okay, so as I've been a commissioner, I've been touring different departments for the past couple years. And when I toured the sanitation department, I was quite surprised. And so I'd like to hear from the city administration on their thoughts of what I witnessed and potential new locations.
Thank you, Chair Dominguez and fellow commissioners. What we brought back is basically an opportunity here to look at one of our existing sites where our operations location is for our utilities at 451 Dade Boulevard. And I think the good part about that is in 2016, there was a potential plan to put a light car rail system there. So a lot of the framework for what we would need from an operational perspective, there's a baseline that's already there. So we have that site as one potential site, and in further discussions we had with administration, we've also included our site at 2100 Meridian, where it's currently Parks and Green Space operational facility. So what we would like to do at this point in time is utilize the consultant who did this light rail car study back then, which was Kimley Horn, and Kimley Horn is a firm we use today. We estimate the cost of approximately $100,000 or less to do it, and it basically would just, provide updated and current costs and information, for us to look at the potential to move the sanitation operation of Public Works under one roof at the operations.
And is that type of funding monies that the department would have already, or needs to be found through finance?
No, we need to make, the request is for $100,000 so we can go ahead and take this action.
Okay, so if my colleagues agree, I'd like to move this to the full commission so that we can then refer it to finance for consideration in 2020. Okay.
But Brett, and if I could manage you, there's some brain power is being put internally behind this already, right? Some, ideas, so we're not starting from scratch. I don't want to delay. I want you to be able to move as fast as possible, so.
Yeah, and I think that's why, going with Kimley Horn will probably be best, because they've already had a baseline when they started this, light rail process, and it involved that facility. And we also put in the green space facility as another potential option. So we can look at a couple things that, may be able to get us where we need to be in terms of being able to move that operation out of 17th Street Garage.
Okay, so with that, we'll move to the full commission and then go to number 18. Oh, I'm sorry.
Number 6 is discuss allowing multifamily residence buildings to hold garage sales 2 times per year. And this was sponsored by Commissioner Dominguez.
Okay, so this item was brought forth by the Flamingo Park Group, MCC Meridian Court Community, and I want to make sure that if any building is having more than one garage sale, that it's the building that requests it, because we wouldn't want this to get out of hand. And I'd love to hear more from Manny Marquez.
Good afternoon, Chair, Commissioners. Currently, the city code allows for 1 garage sale per 12-month period for single-family home or multifamily residence. We could bring an item to the next commission meeting allowing for 2. The cap was 1. It's been 1 for many, many years. Previous commissions discussed increasing it, and there were some fears that some residents might try to have like a flea market type thing on a regular basis. I think this is something that could be brought simply. It's just capping it at 2 per year. We've had requests in the past for multiple garage sales in a year, and we've told the residents, no, you can only have 1. Currently, we average approximately 20 garage sales per year for the whole city.
So I think that the city should not accept garage sale requests from residents directly. It has to come from the building, because that would mean that the board has approved and vetted that it's okay to have the garage sale on their premises. I'd love to hear from our colleagues what they think about this.
If I may add, through the chair, the building has to come, if it's a condo association, it needs to come from the condo association. We wouldn't accept an application from a resident. It needs to be
And that's
from
what I meant when I said building. I meant the condo association has to make the request, not the individual resident.
That's currently in our rules.
Okay.
I have no problem with this. I would move it if you wanted.
Okay.
and no-
Okay. All right, so we'll move it to the full commission, and then with that, we'll go to item number 15.
Item number 15 is discuss the timeline for construction for Miami Beach Convention Center headquarters, hotel, and anticipated home date. This was sponsored by Commissioner Dominguez and co-sponsored by Fernandez. And we have, I believe,
Okay, hi.
Yes, my name is Yvette Batista, Construction Project Manager at Terra. And we're happy to inform that we have secured term sheets with the lender. That is a big milestone because it means that we have completed pretty much the financing, right? Now we're in the due diligence process. There's a lot that needs to be done to come together for closing, okay? So we're looking at closing towards the end of March, but we're still gonna continue with our plan of doing test piles in February, okay? So test piles February, closing in March, and foundations in April. And then hotel opening is still targeting November of 2027, okay? So that's our update.
Okay, and when in 2027?
November 2027, hotel opening.
Okay, so you've secured a lender, the closing is at the end of March, pilings are still being done in February, foundation will be done in April, and,
So, right, the test piles in February, then we begin building the foundation, the piles, right? In April, yes, after closing.
okay. So when will there be a groundbreaking?
Probably mid-April.
Okay.
Mid to end of April. We need to get started planning the ceremony. We were just talking about that earlier.
Commissioner Fernandez.
Yes.
Thank you, and it certainly is exciting news. I hope that closing comes quickly, that we can move forward. I'm glad to hear that we're going to have some movement on the site with pilings. What that means that now is the time
when we need to be talking about traffic plans and stagings and you know, that type of activity, because we want to make sure that as we move forward with this important phase of construction, that we limit the impact as much as we can on the area. Where are we with the MOT plan for this?
Right, we have an MOT and logistics plan that has been circulated and approved by Transportation and Public Works.
So our city manager has
It is-
already approved.
It's ready for city manager's approval as part of the pre-possession conditions.
Okay, and to the city administration, by when do we anticipate approval of the MLT plan?
We
By
have
the,
multiple items that we're working with the city manager's office, and that's one of them.
okay. How about the, you know, the plan for off-site transportation, parking for construction workers and all that? Again, there's another important aspect of this as we move forward. I want to make sure that as we break ground, we have visitor parking here, individuals that want to come to City Hall or individuals that want to experience activities at the convention center or enjoy Lincoln Road. So where are we with the parking and transportation plan for the construction workers?
Right. Our plan is the same that we had in place for our foundation permit. We have a contract with, I can't remember, it's in Drexel. It's a parking garage, and we have an agreement with them that was signed for the foundation permit. It's being extended for the hotel, and it should be signed in the next week or so, and will be submitted for the vertical. But we're covered for the foundation.
Before you start work, are there any easement agreements that need to be reviewed and executed between the developer and the city of Miami Beach?
Correct. We had a call with the city earlier this week about that. We have 5 easements that need to be recorded.
Before we start construction? Okay, and where are we on that? Because I just want to make sure, I don't want us to find ourselves in a situation that you come back a month from now and we're told, oh, we haven't been able to move because, you know, there's an issue with the easements or there's a document sitting on someone's desk and we haven't received a signature yet. We learned from other projects, like, you know, dealing with other jurisdictions and things staying on people's desks. And so I just want to know, you know, I want to make sure we move efficiently. So tell us what's going on with those
Good
easements.
morning, Thais Vieira. I'm the city's liaison for the hotel project. So we've been meeting with the developer over the course, you know, the last couple of years. Very often at the moment, the easements, which is your question, there are 5 easements to be reviewed by the city, reviewed and approved. We're in the process of doing that. We had to hire a surveyor to do a peer review of what they submitted to us, and that is expected to be completed in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. And does that need to come ultimately to the city commission for approval?
No, these are easements that are pre-approved as part of the lease agreement, so the city manager has the authority to do that. These are things like the bridge, right, that connects the hotel to the convention center.
And that's important.
Right, but for example, the staging area, location.
We have right-of-way easements also, and there's the hotel, the hotel alleyway and all that.
Yeah,
The alleyway is one of the easements?
The alleyway, the cranes, the bridge,
The temporary staging areas?
the temporary staging areas, and then the FPL vault and switchgear.
Okay. All right. Are there anything pending with the construction contracts?
Your GMP.
Our GMP will be signed in the next week or so.
Okay. Very good. And there's a certificate of insurance already issued?
That is in progress.
Okay.
That's not gonna be ready until probably the day of closing. Or
Okay.
close to close.
But that's important because, you know, for the city, and that ultimately protects our city, our residents, our taxpayers. So having that certificate of insurance by, you know, why is it that we need
So
to wait?
there's a builder's risk and then the general liability, right?
Okay. And does the city attorney's office feel comfortable waiting until the day of the closing to have that certificate of insurance?
No, so let me just clarify that. We're having a conversation about this yesterday. We're gonna have them in contact with our builder, or with our insurance folks at the city to make sure that the documentation that they're proposing is acceptable to the city. Ultimately, will be reviewed by the city attorney's office as well. But this is in progress. So it's not like at the last minute they're gonna submit something to us for a review.
Okay, very well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. We have our next meeting in a couple weeks, but things change all the time in construction projects, so I would like for you to come back and give us an update what's going on February 12th.
February 12th, okay. Same committee,
Yes.
okay.
This is a late January meeting.
Yes.
Want that closing? Want an update on that closing?
Yep. Okay, with that, we'll move on to item number 16.
Item number 16 is discuss the potential implementation of a text messaging system to facilitate the reporting of code compliance complaints. And this was sponsored by Commissioner Fernandez and co-sponsored by Commissioner Magazine.
Okay, so who wants to go first?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an item I placed on the agenda. I'm so grateful to Commissioner Magazine for joining me and sponsoring this item, because as we were speaking earlier in an earlier item, enforcement of issues is important, and I feel the more that we can do to make our government accessible to individuals in their preferred means of communication, the more efficient our operations will be, and the better we'll be able to serve our public. I think allowing our residents to be able to text message code enforcement is aligned with the direction which we're moving in. For example, going to switch gears to police. With police, we have the technology, and we're working with Miami-Dade County to be able to incorporate the text to 911, and that is in the foreseeable future. Because we already have the equipment for it. Miami-Dade County has adapted their equipment for it, and all that there is synchronization going on with it. So the next phase is how do we get our other regulatory and enforcement agencies aligned with this? So I see we have our administration here. I want to recognize Frank Quintana, our Chief Information Officer, to tell us where we're at with this item.
Good morning, Frank Quintana, CIO with the City of Miami Beach. So as an update on the technology side of it, we established a pilot. We identified a technology, we established a pilot and did testing throughout the fourth quarter of last year to kind of work out the technology piece of that. We've registered some numbers for the short code texting, which is what many of us are familiar with, to register or sign up for notifications and those types of systems. And we're at a point now where the technology works. We've established how to do the workflows that we would need to properly implement this. And we've done a demo, with the departments to show them this is, what's possible and what we're able to do. So right now, I don't want to speak for the code department, but right now we're trying to figure out how that's going to be implemented operationally, right? Because just because the technology works, the department needs to be able to take in those requests and process them. And then, yes.
So you're saying we could apply this across multiple departments, not just code enforcement?
So our intent, right, even though this item is specific to code, was to build it in a way that we can make it extendable to other departments as well. So it's not a short code specific to code compliance. And as time goes on and we kind of work out how it is that we can intake those requests and how we pass that along, it's built in a way that multiple departments would be able to use it over time, which was our intent. And part of the reason why we wanted to wait a little bit to do it once, but be able to give the flexibility where departments across the city would be able to adapt this if so, desired.
Sure. And how far away are we from being able to launch, not lunch, I'm thinking it's 12:08, I'm thinking of lunch, to launch this service?
It would probably be within the next few weeks.
Within the next few weeks, okay.
At least to start a pilot, right?
Okay.
So we have the messaging done and we can do, we can work with the code department and communications, if needed, or any other departments that need to work on the engagement with our residents so they understand how to do it. And as time goes on, if we decide to onboard additional departments, we can change some of the messages. So you'll register with the system, you'll accept that you want, and then depending what it is that you put in, we can, kind of send that to the correct department that would be responsible for addressing the issue.
I love this item. I'll tell you, our residents' preferred method of communication is text message, which is why I have placed this on the agenda, because a lot of times I'll get complaints from residents by text message, And it's much easier to tell them, rather than tell them download an app or email this person or call this number, it's much easier to tell them this same text message you just sent me, you send it to this other number. And so, Madam Chair, I'd like to keep this item open because once we launch the code aspect of this, I would like to continue getting updates on, number one, it's how its success or, if anything needs to be changed, how it's being received by the public once it's launched, but also where we are in the process of then getting onboarding of other departments as part of this text messaging service. And Frank and Code, if you could meet with me, because I would like a demonstration to make sure that it meets the expectations for the public.
Yeah, and I could certainly schedule time with your office to do that. The good thing is the way that it's built, we'll be able to track the number of text messages. So today we know how many calls the departments get, so we can start, providing that level of detail. This is how many we get, how many requests we get through like the app, as you mentioned, how many of them are in phone calls to our call centers, how many of them are texting. And inevitably, we can have a broader discussion about what we do with our call centers with the city, how we intake that, from a 311 standpoint.
Right.
And we can talk about that. So I think this is a much larger discussion. Texting is a portion of it, but it's more of a strategic.
I love this item, and Frank, thank you and your team for taking on this effort on these capabilities that we can expand not just in code but throughout our organization, and to code enforcement for stepping up and being willing to adapt into this new technology. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, if you don't mind keeping this item open.
Yes, that's fine. Commissioner Magazine, as co-sponsor, do you want to add any comments?
No, I just think this is great. The more that we could do to provide accessibility, so often we serve as middlemen and women for a lot of things. In some regards, we serve. If this was McDonald's, we'd be on the board of directors, but then also uniquely serve as hamburger flippers, right? So it's like to try and facilitate just better communication for our residents and the people that are actually on the ground executing. I think anything we could do to facilitate that is great.
Okay, so when do you want the update, Commissioner Fernandez?
Let's say a month, because there should be
For the
this
March
should be
date.
implemented within a few weeks. So, and I would love to do something big. I mean, this is for our residents. This is going to be huge, and I think we should, let's do something big to launch this and communicate this to our community. So, let's get an update in a month.
Great. And City Attorney, I'd like to co-sponsor, be listed as a co-sponsor.
I love it.
That'll be March 12th?
Correct.
Okay.
And so with that, we'll move on to item number 8.
Item number 8 is discuss expanding city bike program. This was sponsored by Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez.
Okay, Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez.
Hi, after our traffic debacle during our Basel, I spoke to Jose. I did see Commissioner Fernandez on an e-bike, although I didn't see him on the beach walk on an e-bike.
Not on that sidewalk.
He's very responsibly running his e-bike. So what is this? How can we expand the city bike program that we have so that more convention goers do have access to bikes? When I looked at the numbers, there was a healthy amount of people grabbing those bikes, and I think the more that we offer, the better. So I don't know if you've spoken to City Bike and what they said, because I spoke to someone at City Bike who told me it takes a long time to get those docks. They have to order them, and it could take, years to a year to get them. So I don't know what the planned expansion would look like, but.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning, Madam Chair, committee members, Jose Gonzalez, Transportation and Mobility Director and Interim Parking Director. So just by way of brief background, since the inception of the Deco Bike Bicycle Sharing Program back in 2011, it has just grown, exploded in popularity. The program is currently registering approximately 1.2 million rides a year, and that's with about 1,100 bikes strategically located at docking stations throughout throughout the city. So given the popularity of the program, we recently amended the contract and extended it for an additional 5 years. So now it expires in 2029. As part of that amendment, it provides for more electric-assisted bicycles as part of the program for about another 100. And there's also a public benefit that's associated with the amendment where it's intended to incentivize residents who are currently not registered as part of the program, and also a little bonus for residents who are already registered. They get 1 free month every 12 months of rides for free. So definitely there's an interest in expanding it further. As you mentioned, Commissioner, during Art Week, we put an additional station out there right in front of the convention center, and it was highly utilized. City Bike had to have a person like constantly replenishing bikes there.
So it worked. So then what
Yes.
can we do? Okay, so let's say that we took that and we multiplied it for next year's Basel, like times 10. I'm not like, I want a serious bicycle. Look at the amount of rides that we had during Basel. I think it was impressive. So
It
how
is.
can how can
And
you expand
that
it?
that
My
opportu-
expansion initially, I was saying expand it all over. But like, what do you think you could possibly do at the convention center? I think it should be permanent because I think that people from all conventions are just going to pick up these bikes. By the way, people during the winter months, they're coming down here to South Beach. Like, what more do they want? They're in the sunshine. They want a bike. Nobody wants to get into a car. And once they see how bad the traffic is, they're going to grab those bikes all over. But what you need to figure out is, where are those people coming? Like, where are the strategic hotels that they're going to grab the bikes, bring them to the convention center? Can they dock them? I guess it's more complicated. Then let's say that they get to the convention center and there isn't an available dock. I do know that there aren't enough city bikes over by the Faena complex. They need bikes, right? I would put a station there. I would have, like, what are the top convention hotels for Basel? Find out those numbers, put stations, the expansion should have numbers directly from oceanfront hotels or to the convention center. So do you want to?
Agreed. And I think you're right on point, Commissioner. I think the next step here is to dialogue with City Bike so that the expansion, it needs to be strategic, as you're pointing out. It needs to be targeted. It needs to be strategic where there's a lot of demand and little supply. So I think that exercise needs to happen in order to determine the scale of the expansion. I will note that any expansion, any significant expansion, will likely require an amendment to the contract because unfortunately, the current amendment does limit the maximum number of bicycles to 1,200. So that's just about 100 more than what's out there today. So it's really not a whole
Sorry,
lot.
Jose, could you repeat that last point?
It's
What limits it to 1,200?
1,200 bicycles.
contract.
Currently, we have about 1,100
Right, but
bicycles.
what limits it? The contract? So can we
We
revise
can
the
amend it.
contract?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. It can be amended, at any time. But it does, for
I
whatever
thought the
reason,
city manager
happen.
had the authority to increase that.
We do. They're gonna amend it and come back to us with something amended. But you also have to take into account when you're doing this, does the Fountain Blue offer their customers bikes? Let's say that they get on their Fountain Blue bikes and they get to the convention center. Do we have readying docking stations where people can put their bikes? I think this is a question of, you have to call the major hotels. Faena, how many bikes do you have and is there a need, And you're gonna have to get on the phone and do some research and find out, how many bikes does each hotel have? Are we competing with them if we're putting the city bikes there? And would they like extras? And then you are going to not just have to have city bike docking stations at the convention center. You're going to have regular docking, regular dockage for bikes. Right now, do we have that? I don't know that we do. So this is a question of, really figuring out how can we make our convention center bike friendly. And by the way, I wouldn't discount, the Washington Avenue. Look at it from all, from every point.
Absolutely. There are definitely areas within the city that I think there's unmet demand where we would prioritize those areas, but it would need to be in partnership with with Deco Bike, of course.
Why don't you go, so go to Deco Bike, this would be my motion, Laura's in the bathroom, Commissioner Dominguez in the bathroom, I'm sorry. Okay, this would be my motion. Go, do this little study that we're talking about our largest hotels and where people are taking the bikes from. Go and speak to Deco Bike and then come back with a plan, but twofold. Not just the Deco Bike plan, come back with where we're going to allow people to dock other bikes from different hotels. Because I see a lot of people around town that have bikes from their hotels, or they might rent a bike while they're here. So I would make that twofold. And how long do you think you need to do that? Because I really want to get this in place for next season. Maybe
Absolutely.
even.
So my team just advised that the conversations with City Bike have already started in
Mhm.
terms of an expansion, a targeted expansion. I don't know that I have a time frame yet as to when we can come back. I would say if you can give us a couple months.
60 days? You want 90 days?
60 days. Let's try
Okay.
60 days.
Because
We'll
I would
come
like us to place that order and have that in place for, for next season. And then, really, we're gonna have to, it's not just the expansion of the program, it's letting the convention center people and all the conventions that we have booked, having them begin to market the idea of bicycles too. To their convention goers. Hey, by the way, here's your biking option. You can either rent bicycles here. Well, we don't want to compete against ourselves, obviously, but we're gonna have Deco Bikes available, and let them know and give the convention goers a map of where those bikes are so that they can pass that along to their, convention. It's easier than a different transportation modality, but at the same time, I think it's going to be effective.
Okay, we're going to lose quorum in about 20 minutes, so I'd really like to move things along. Commissioner Fernandez, and I know we have public comment.
Thank you. And Mr. Director, as you mentioned, we have the new agreement with City Bike that includes the resident benefit that I'm so grateful to City Bike that they agreed to. They also increased the e-bikes to 10%, or by 10%, I think, of what we had before. Has that new agreement already been signed by the city? I know Deco Bike signed it already. Have we signed it
They
already?
signed it. I believe it is still being routed for final signatures on the city side.
So that means our residents right now don't have the benefit that we negotiated for them.
I know the effective date is January 1st. So with the effective date being January 1st, I would think that those benefits are already in place, even though
Okay.
the contract has not been fully inked yet.
Okay, and why haven't we signed that yet?
I think it's just being routed through DocuSign. We'll find out where it is and we'll
Please.
expedite it.
Thank you.
I know I
Okay,
said-
public
And
comment,
now for
1
public
minute.
comment, we have Matthew Gotanov. You have 1 minute. Matthew, if you could unmute yourself.
Thank you. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matthew Golstanoff, and I just wanted to thank the entire committee for discussing this item. The number of rides last year was actually higher than 1.2 million. It was over 1.7 million, and that's a number that has plateaued in the last couple of years, probably because of the limitations on the size of the network. So I think this is a really timely item that's being discussed, in any way that can expand the system will allow more people to ride and more rides to be conducted. And I also want to thank the commissioner for being the lead on this resident benefit, the resident benefit that was previously mentioned. It's a first in the country that provides no charge rides to residents of a bike sharing system. So once it's up and running, it's going to be a really exciting program. So thank you very much, and I hope that you can all work together to expand the system even further.
Thank you. If we could unmute caller and user 1, and if you could please introduce yourself, give us your name. Okay, you put their hand down.
All right, so this item will come back to the March 12th meeting. And I'm going to skip around a little bit. Number 11.
Number 11 is discuss decreasing infrastructural street clutter on sidewalks that inhibit the intended use of the pedestrian right-of-way.
Commissioner Magazine.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair. We spend so much time and effort and brain power trying to beautify our city. And the one thing that just, once you see it, you can never unsee it, is so much street clutter and signs. And if I was like one of my colleagues, I'd have a PowerPoint presentation 100 pages long just to show, I mean, we have to just be more realistic, right? If you're on Collins Avenue and technology has changed, navigation has changed, if you're on Collins Avenue driving north, you don't need a sign pointing North Beach this way. And that's just my fundamental view. It provides, this really leeways with the city bike discussion. We will never, ever solve our traffic problem if we don't do everything possible to get people out of their cars. One way to do so is freeing up our sidewalks of clutter. Brad, what are some initial steps that we could take? Can we do some sort of analysis of, you know, block by block, the street signs that we have, what is important, what is not? Even if you look right outside of City Hall, in between the convention center, just within the past few months, there's, I believe they're handicap or city-only parking signs, and they're placed at every single parking spot. It is just overkill. It's aesthetically unpleasing. It's fostering an unsafe environment. We need to take better pride in presenting our city as a place that just looks uncluttered and enjoying the natural resources that we're blessed with. So let me hand it over to you to see how we can start kind of implementing something like this.
I think first on this matter, the first issue is it's probably going to take a little bit of a combined effort between, I would say, perhaps Public Works, parking, and transportation collectively working together. I think all of us kind of maybe touch a little piece of that. So I think that's the first step in us being able to get together and then kind of, you know, compile a list of, you know, all the things as it relates to signs we see out there. I want to mention one thing, because I don't know that we've really talked about it in a public forum as far as we talk about street clutter, but in part of our initiative last year, we were actually able to remove all of the news racks that were on the sidewalks and causing some issues. So they're all gone from the city. So that's a positive step.
Are there state law that kind of governs what you need some signs for?
Yes, I mean, I defer more to.
And
but yes.
We don't need to get into that here. Maybe, Jose, just in interest of time, if you could just do a quick LTC about state law, and I would love to come out there on the ground with you all and kind of just, you know, visualize how we can do better, and then we could work in tandem about putting a plan of action forward about how we're going to kind of declutter some of the oversignage that we have kind of all throughout our city. Does that work?
Sure, we'll be happy to assist Public Works in any, you know, site visits, inspections needed. There are signs that are required, regulatory signs that are required, but there are many signs that I'm sure are superfluous that could.
If you could follow up with an LTC about what those requirements are, just so I have a frame of reference, and as do my colleagues, be very much appreciated, and look forward to working with you on this.
Absolutely.
Okay, so on to item number 9.
We'll close that one
Yeah,
with
we'll
the
close out
LTC.
that one, wait for the LTC. Item number 19 will be next.
Okay, item number 19 is discuss the potential removal of bulb outs at certain locations to increase parking and or mitigate traffic congestion. This is sponsored by Commissioner Magazine.
Madam Chair, I'm fine to pull this. This caught me off guard. Usually, on the other side of things like this, very much more pedestrian friendly. So this kind of caught me a bit off guard. Let me just, if you wouldn't mind, defer it, and I'll come back to you to see if I pull it entirely.
Wait, don't pull it.
Yeah.
Wait, sorry, that was the mayor's item.
Oh,
Right, okay.
Okay.
Oh,
Wait,
okay, Mayor's
sorry.
item. Oh, that's okay. I am in support of this, removing bulb outs and looking for ways to find parking and whatnot. Commissioner?
Yes, I think that removing the bulb outs on 40th Street are key to allowing people to make a turn, and you will alleviate traffic tremendously. So
Let's
I-
move this to the full commission.
Yeah, we would like to, well, do you want to, okay.
Okay,
Do you want-
all in favor?
Do we know what we're removing? Can we start with 40th
so
Street?
just,
Well, we'll
quick-
discuss it again at the full commission. Yeah. Thank you. In the interest of time, because we're about to lose quorum, and there's item number 7, Commissioner Fernandez?
Start with 40th Street on the bulb outs. We don't like those at all.
Item number 7 is discuss implementing a system that notifies residents if their vehicle is illegally parked to provide a reasonable amount of time to comply with the city's parking policies. And transportation will be presented.
Commissioner Fernandez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And there cannot be a easier, more common sense item than this. When someone's going to be towed, they usually have been given a parking ticket already, and there's usually a 15-minute grace period between being issued a parking ticket and someone being able to be towed. When that parking ticket is issued, we should give our residents the courtesy of a text message. Hey, listen, your car has been ticketed and you're about to be towed. Because the goal is not to tow the vehicle. The goal is to achieve compliance. And if we text message the person once that ticket has been issued, we might be able to avoid that car having to get towed and avoid huge costs for our residents. So I want to ask Jose, where are we in being able to implement this?
Sure, and through the chair, Commissioner, you're absolutely correct. There is value in notifying our residents if they're parked illegally and giving them an opportunity to correct that. What we did was we met with the IT department to see what it would take to develop such a system, and it's definitely doable, it's definitely feasible.
Great.
There is some information that we would like from the committee
Sure.
as we give this a little more shape. Three factors primarily. The first is how long should a parking enforcement officer wait?
The 15 minutes, we're already giving them, we're already giving our residents 15 minutes between ticket and towing. I believe, just keep the same policy of 15 minutes, but the moment you issue that ticket, send a text message to the resident.
Sure. In order for residents to receive text messages, they have to be registered in our system, in our virtual system. Currently, only the minority are. We need
The minority or the majority?
There's
I thought it was 16,000 that were registered
of about,
with a phone number out of the 22,000.
yes, 60 out of all the residents that are registered, the majority have listed their contact information, but there are many residents who are not registered.
And we can build upon that.
And so, right, there will need to be extensive community outreach to let residents know about and it benefits
Right.
residents because it provides discounts, discounted parking for residents.
Commissioner, can we move this to the
Well,
full
and I think
commission?
there was a third item that he
Yes,
needed feedback on.
Okay.
The other is how many times do we notify residents? Should it only be once? They're
Yeah,
notified once
one
via
text message.
And
You let them
that
know, and
suffices.
you give them the-
And I believe, and then the types of violations, of course. There are some violations that are very egregious, and there are others that are not
Yeah, like
so.
if you're parked in front of a fire hydrant, of course, no. But like if you were parked somewhere and then they put a no parking sign because it's being rented out for a valet purpose or a special event purpose, there's life safety stuff and then there's non-life safety stuff. And I think we would all agree non-life safety stuff is what where
May I
we should give
proffer
a
one
courtesy.
scenario, the freight loading zones? We are trying to enforce freight loading zones so that trucks don't have to block travel lanes.
But I think you're still giving the resident the 15-minute grace period, or are you not?
We currently, are we?
And
Good
quickly,
morning.
because we're about to lose quorum, sorry.
Yes, no, because for freight loading zones, there's a tow truck that follows the enforcement officer because we're trying to,
So you don't give the 15-minute grace period?
Unfortunately,
So in
no.
that case, you don't. Anything that right now you're giving that 15-minute grace period, give the resident the courtesy of that text message, because in those 15 minutes, you might get the compliance quicker than what the tow truck can get there.
Absolutely. And just the last thing I want to state is that there is an unintended consequence. Hopefully, this privilege, if you will, is not abused.
What's the unintended
It has the
consequence?
potential of being abused if residents know that they're going to be provided an opportunity, a
If
text.
they won't abuse it because they're still getting a parking ticket. They're still getting that parking ticket placed on that on their windshield.
it's the
So they're still being penalized with, what is it, $46 if you get a ticket?
It depends on the type of ticket. It could be 36. if it's a
36,
parking
right.
ticket.
So there's,
you know, I'm not concerned about that. Madam Chair, thank you for being willing to
Okay,
move
so
the
we'll
item.
move that to the full commission.
Is that with a positive recommendation?
Okay, by acclamation. From there, we'll move on to item 21, please.
Item number 21 is discuss enhancing public transportation accessibility and efficiency at senior centers with a dedicated mid-size bus service. This one is sponsored by the mayor and co-sponsored by Commissioner Dominguez.
So this item, if you quickly want to tee it up, and then I'd like to move it to the full commission.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. So we have been formulating a plan that would consist of a dedicated mid-size bus that would serve our senior centers and pick up residents from those senior centers and take them to a destination. One destination that we've heard, or several destinations, one that we've heard loud and clear from residents of the Stella Maris is the Walmart. Now, as you know, there is no Walmart within our city. The closest Walmart is by 163rd Street in Aventura, in the Aventura area. So this service would be leaving our city, if you will. So far, that's the most popular destination request is Walmart. So we're taking steps to try to
I
refine
think that's
this plan.
amazing. I think it's great. At least it's not the casino. Because I know that's a popular stop that they like too.
We do intend on
I'd like to
serving-
move this to the full commission. Are we all in support?
I'd like to co-sponsor it.
Yeah. Okay, from there, we'll move on to item 12.
Item number 12 is discuss, consider co-naming 17th Street in honor of Norman Bremen.
Commissioner Fernandez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think when we look around our city, whether you look at Pride Park and the artwork that's been donated there, or whether you look the identity of our city, how it's been interconnected with Art Basel and the impact that has not only in the economy of our city, but on our city's brand. Or even when you look at the incredible memorial that we have with the Holocaust Memorial. Behind all of this is the generosity of patrons of good causes like Norman Bremen. And because of that great contribution that he's done to our city, I think it's always beautiful that we get to honor these individuals while they're still with us, when they get to appreciate the warmth of the community that is grateful for those meaningful contributions. And in that spirit, I'd like to request the code designation of a portion of 17th Street in his honor, because it is in the proximity of these great contributions that he has done to our community.
Thank you, Commissioner Fernandez. Norman Bremen has been very philanthropic, and he is spearheading and funding the expansion and upgrades to the Holocaust Memorial. He's donated beautiful artwork, the Minna sculpture that we have at Pride Park, and I'd like to move the item.
And if I could just, Madam Chair, just 1 second, also his contribution to Mount Sinai, and if there's one issue that unites Miami Beach perhaps more than anything else is being anti-casino, and I'm not sure if there's a bigger catalyst than all of South Florida as to why we don't have a casino in Miami Beach other than Norman Bremen, so I think this is a great contribution.
Yes, and Madam Chair, I just want to place it on the record. Mr. Director wishes the portion of 17th Street that the administration is recommending to be designated.
So Commissioner, we're actually not recommending. We wanted to know what the committee's, what your recommendation is in terms of the limits. It could be the entire street, or it could be a portion of 17th Street. One thing I'd like to mention is that 17th Street is currently co-designated as Hank Meyer Boulevard, and we know that because there are signs out there between Alton and Meridian. Now, the county will or allows multiple co-designations on a street.
I would say from 17th Street to Alton Road, from Washington Avenue to Alton Road, that is the area, the city center, that is within proximity of a lot of the contributions that Mr. Bremen has done. And I also want to echo what Commissioner Magazine said. Even last year, Norman Bremen was willing to fill up an airplane with Miami Beach residents to take to Tallahassee to join in the fight against casinos. Stuff like that really helps keep the character of our community, beyond the actual contributions of physical stuff, like art, like the Holocaust Memorial, like a new cancer center, but, you know, continuing in keeping our city safe from the influences of something like casinos.
Amazing. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So we'll move that to the full commission, and then we're going to lose quorum in 2 minutes, and I think item 20, which is the last item, deserves a longer discussion. Can we defer it to the February 12th in 2 weeks?
Which is that?
It is Bicycle Lane on the west side of Collins Avenue.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll move that one to February 20th, to February 12th. So with that, thank you, everybody. Thank you to the city administration and the team here on the dais for another successful public safety and neighborhood quality of life meeting. We'll see you again on February 12th.